So who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? Anybody know? Anyone have an idea? Yeah, I know. We're all right now trying to figure it out. Who did it? Who did it? Who did it? And Trump was confronted about it because it has to deal with the war in Ukraine. Because hey, what's better than a global conflict that was started off by the previous administration? And don't forget, all right, don't forget that I find it suspicious that that pipeline was destroyed, and how the New York Times said maybe it's best we don't look into it.
First, I just want to thank you for letting us in here. I'm with Zero Hedge, and the last administration banned us on social media, so we're really grateful to be in the White House. And this is not exactly sports related, but I've been dying to ask you this question for a long time, which is that 2.5 years ago, the Nord Stream pipeline blew up. Yeah. And despite what people like John Brennan and all the hawks said, you were one person who said Russia probably did not blow up its own pipeline.
Yeah, you can believe they said Russia blew it up, yeah.
And so I'm wondering, now that you're president, if you would consider launching a formal investigation into what happened there and who actually did blow it up.
Well, probably if I asked certain people, I'd be able to tell you without having to waste a lot of money on an investigation. But
I think we want to know, because a lot of evidence is pointing to it wasn't Russia. I mean, that's their pipeline that they were making money off of. Oil and natural gas was going into Europe. They were making money. Hey, something's making us money. Let's blow it up. Dumb idea.
And so I'm wondering, now that you're president, if you would consider launching a formal investigation into what happened there and who actually did blow it up.
Well, probably if I asked certain people, I'd be able to tell you without having to waste a lot of money on an investigation. But I think a lot of people know who blew it up. But I was the one that blew it up originally because I wouldn't let it be built. And then when Biden got in, he allowed it to be built. And it's very interesting. But I think Russia, with the price of oil right now, oil's gone down. I think we're in a good position to settle. They want to settle. Ukraine wants to settle. If I weren't president, nobody would be settling.
Wow. And of course, you know, just want to throw this out here. This is from Hotspot. I want to pull this up here. Shout out to Hotspot.
Bullies see big bomb. Bully tread carefully because big bomb go boom. And regardless of how blindingly obvious that would seem, this earth-shattering insight, which was shared yesterday by former CIA Operations Chief Ralph Goff, contains two very important takeaways for countries in the global south or on the periphery of the US global empire. The first is that accepting the empire's instigation to go into any conflict on the promise of being armed of victory by the empire will only end one way, with that country becoming a doomed meat grinder with no future. Because the thing is, those who run the empire operate on an ancient Roman imperial principle called Ordo ab chao, which means order through chaos. The chaos itself is the point. The empire's goal when pushing a country into war isn't the outcome of the war. The war itself is the goal. And the longer they can keep it going, the more profitable it is for the empire. As a result, if you go to war on the empire's instigation, it will never arm you well enough to actually win. It has perfected the art of drip-feeding proxies, with just enough of its obsolete weapon stocks to keep them hungry, hopeful, and interested, while they keep fighting and thinning out their population, and also plunging themselves into generational debt that will be collected. Of course, they won't have the money to pay, and that's fine. They'll just sign over the mining rights to all the resources that the country happens to sit on. And in doing so, the empire effectively pays itself twice. First, by giving its defense contractors a nice stimulus package, and then by raiding the natural resources of the unfortunate dummy who agreed to fight one of the empire's forever wars. The second takeaway is that no matter how much asinine propaganda it pushes about its alleged invincibility and the alleged weakness of everyone else, the empire is not at all invincible, and it is in fact very much afraid of mutually assured destruction, such as that which is inherent in nuclear warfare. So at the start of the most recent phase of hostilities in Ukraine in 2022, when the usual suspects were making all those noises about Russia being an army with a country attached to it, or Nigeria with snow, this is what they were actually thinking. And this speaks to a wider lesson for the global south. Never take the empire's words seriously. Only take its actions seriously.
Now I want to pause here because, you know, we got to pull up something here. All right. Got to pull up something here about that Nord Stream pipeline, because when that pipeline was destroyed, that set the environment and situation up all over the world of thinking, okay, World War III might be around the horizon. I want to pull up this interview that Tucker Carlson did with Putin. Remember that? Remember this interview that was so earth-shattering that it was going to devastate everything? How many of you forgot that Tucker Carlson actually interviewed Putin? Be honest. Be honest. Type 1 for kid. I always remembered. I'll never forget. I'm so triggered by it. A type 2. Oh, damn. I actually forgot he did that.
Who blew up Nord Stream?
You for sure.
I was busy that day. Nate, do you have I did not blow up Nord Stream. Thank you, though.
У вас лично, может быть, есть алиби, у вас лично.
You personally may have an alibi, but the CIA has no such alibi.
Do you have evidence that NATO or the CIA did it?
Вы знаете,
You know, I won't get into details, but people always say in such cases, look for someone who is interested. But in this case, we should not only look for someone who is interested, but also for someone who has capabilities. Because there may be many people interested, but not all of them are capable of sinking to the bottom of the Baltic Sea and carrying out this explosion. These two components should be connected: who is interested and who is capable of doing it.
Now I want to pull up this article here. A lot of people know who blew up the Nord Stream. Really? Hey, Trump, maybe you should investigate into that. I don't know. U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed claims that Russia was behind the 2022 sabotage of Nord Stream gas pipelines. And again, it was a huge environmental disaster, by the way. And says the true culprit is widely known without naming names. Please name names. Speaking at a White House press event, Trump said that there was no need for a formal investigation to uncover who carried out the attack, which crippled a key energy route between Russia and Western Europe. 3 of the 4 Nord Stream pipelines built to deliver Russian gas to Germany and the rest of Western Europe was damaged by blasts at the bottom of the Baltic Sea in September of 2022. On Tuesday, a correspondent for libertarian financial blog Zero Hedge, which has been admitted to the White House press events under the new administration, noted that Trump had previously rejected the Western narrative that Russia blew up its own pipelines and asked the president if he was planning to initiate a probe to find out who was actually behind the attack. If you can believe it, they said Russia blew it up. Well, probably if I asked certain people, they would be able to tell you without having to waste a lot of money on an investigation. But I think a lot of people know who blew it up. All right, well, who blew it up? Ukrainian mercenaries? The CIA? Who? Some European proxy? Who did it? Who did it? A bird goes tweet and now goes who? In early February 2023, veteran investigative journalist Seymour Hersh published a report claiming that U.S. President Joe Biden had given the order to destroy the Nord Stream pipeline. Remember when Biden said, yeah, I blew it up. We're going to blow it up. According to an informed source who talked to the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, the explosives were detonated on September 26, 2022, had been planted at the pipelines by U.S. Navy divers a few months earlier under the cover of a NATO exercise called Baltops 22. The White House denied the report, calling it utterly false and complete fiction. Senior Russian officials, including President Vladimir Putin, had previously pointed the finger at the U.S. as possible culprit behind the Nord Stream explosions. They've argued that Washington had the technical means to carry out the operation that stood to gain the most, considering the attack disrupted Russian energy supplies to the EU and forced the shift to the more expensive U.S.-supplied liquefied gas. Who could have done it? Who benefits? Nord Stream pipeline blows up. Who benefits? Who benefits? Who? A bird goes tweet and an owl goes who. But Trump, maybe, I don't know. We could investigate on what happened to those resources. Like, who did it? I think that's an important thing to bring up, because if we don't know who did it, then we need to find out who did it. That matters the most. Yet here we are, still stuck in this war. Is there going to be a peace treaty? Is there going to be a ceasefire? Because we need to know the culprits who instigated this war. We need to know the people who profited off the war. But wait, hold on. We actually kind of have a list right now. I mean, their hands may not be fully bloody, but they got some red on them. Let's talk about our favorite U.S. Congress lawmakers, Democrat and Republican, who made a huge financial killing in 2022, thanks to unusual whales. I mean, what else is there to say right now, folks? What else is there to say about the Democrats and Republicans who made big money by being invested into this? Not to mention, let's look at all the Hollywood and corporate media celebrities and everyone else in between who are promoting this war. And then all the while pushing narratives that, oh, yeah, this is what happened in Nord Stream pipeline. This, that, and the other. This war, all it did was cause pain. It's going to cause generational trauma for the people of Ukraine. So many people died for nothing. Trump, take time out of your day, maybe. Maybe call for an investigation, find out who was responsible. But as the great St. George Carlin once said, it's a big club, and you ain't in it. So no, I don't think we'll know. But we'll always sit here and speculate and give our opinions, won't we? That'll bring justice to the dead.